Okay, welcome everybody to my very first PC build video, DIY video. Now, a small short recap. My previous PC, my motherboard short-circuited, so I had to rebuild that from scratch pretty much. That's 2 years ago. That's when I really first started to get more into depth into the PC master race or building PCs, and I found it to be quite fun and enjoyable. And I sort of more parts along the way, but now, for the first time ever, my first time at least, I'll be making a full tutorial on how to build your own PC. I feel confident enough in my knowledge that I can, although if you do see any things and stuff I do that you want to change or improve upon, give me some tips and pointers, please do feel free to do so in the comments down below. I'm more than willing to learn more. Now, for the specs I'll be using for this PC, I'll be using the processor Ryzen 9 5950X. This has been a back order for months. The motherboard is ROG Crosshair 8 Hero with the 570 chipset and also optimized for the AMD Zen 3 architecture processor, which is the reason why I chose this motherboard. As I said, it got X570 chipset, which I need to support, and an AM4 socket. Now for an AIO, the reason why this is open is this I already have in my previous computer, so I'm going to reuse it in this one. It's the ROG ryujin 360mm AIO with Noctua fans installed. Those fans are pretty damn good. And it comes with its own tangled mess of cables. I will show you guys where those cables go when we get to it. Now for the power supply I went overkill. I'll explain. At my retailer, of which I ordered these parts, they were out of stock of everything between 750 watts all the way up to 1200. So everything from 750 to up to 1200 watts power supplies were out of stock. So yes, I could of course use a 750 or 650, but I am considering buying a 3080 Ti, 3080, or even better, 3090 in the future, and that requires a lot more power, as does this processor, of which I plan to overclock. Now for the graphics card, is my current one that I'm also using in my previous PC, is the ROG Strix Advanced 2080 Ti. I bought this a month before the 30 series launch, thinking I made a terrible mistake, but since I can't buy any graphics card for that matter and these days, I guess it was a relatively good business decision, and yet it wasn't at the same time. But in our case, that's the graphics card 2080 Ti, 1200 watts power supply, 360 AIO. This is the case I'll be using. It's the Meshify S2 by Fractal design, which has very good airflow and supports up to a 420mm AIO radiator, if I remember correctly. Yes. Okay then, let's begin, shall we? Okay, now for the motherboard. Let's unbox this baby. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this specific motherboard is PCI Gen 4 ready, which can we get handy down the line for PCI Gen 4. That's pretty neat, and also support SLI. I will not be doing any SLI, but yeah, let's go open this baby up. Very nice, remove the plastic covering. Okay, this is where we're gonna begin. We're gonna begin this video with the CPU installation. That's usually where I like to start my PC builds and stuff like that. Well, that's ironic considering this is my first, but yeah. We'll begin by putting in the CPU and prepare the motherboard, and then mount the motherboard into the case. Okay, motherboard is out of the box. Now you're gonna need to remember there are more stuff in here which you will need in order to assemble the rest of it. But in either case, I forgot to mention my storage solutions. This is a 500GB. This is going to be my boot drive. This is a M.2 NVMe drive SSD, and this is a 1TB NVMe M.2 SSD. I might be getting initials wrong, but it doesn't really matter. So yeah, system and game storage and stuff like that. And for video storage and that sort of thing, I do have an 8 terabytes hard drive by Seagate, which will have most of my videos and stuff. It already does, in fact. I pulled it off my old computer, as I did with those two. Of course, I formatted my computer before removing them. Now, these two, they're gonna go underneath one here. I think it got 1 or 2 slots here, and there's also 1 slot under this heatsink here. I will show you guys when we get to it. Now, first, I'm gonna have to install the CPU. Let's begin, shall we? Okay, now to open this bracket, I'm gonna take this pin, pull it a little bit to the side, and then lift it up carefully. Now, the socket is now open and ready for the CPU to be installed. Now, I would like to make you pay attention to this triangle you see right here. That's gonna be important for the orientation of the CPU. I'll show you here. Now, this is the CPU. Now, don't touch the top with your fingers or the bottom. Do not touch that. You don't want to bend any of the pins down here and or smudge this area here. I'm gonna need 2 hands for this. Give me a minute. Okay, now you remember the triangle I showed you? The one on focus, yeah. And near my finger there. You're gonna have to line up that with this triangle in the top left corner. Okay, so that will be like so. Now be careful, just simply drop it in. You can feel it falling in place. Pull the lever a little bit to the side, and there you go. Now the latch is secured, CPU is safely installed. Yeah, so now the CPU is installed. It's relatively easy. It's a slightly different story on the Intel side of things, but it's not that hard either. Okay, so now we're gonna remove those 2 brackets here and put on the standoff screws that comes with the ryujin cooler. Those look like this. Those will go at the bottom. I will show you guys when we get to it, and screw this again at the top when we assemble the cooler itself on the CPU itself. So I will screw these out and I'll catch you soon. Now we got 4 screw holes there because this is the basic AM4 backplate, which just come loose. If I pull this up, the backplate is here. You want to keep that. You want to keep that on because you'll need it for this specific AIO. Thermal paste. We are gonna have to apply some thermal paste. There it is, NTH1 by Noctua. Now, there are several opinions out there on how much and how you should apply your thermal paste. But in short terms, you should not use too little and you should not use too much. And remember, you're not icing a cake. Okay, so gonna have to go here. Okay, thermal paste is applied. It's like a small pea, and the essence of this is that once we squeeze down the backplate of the AIO cooler, it will spread the cooling paste more or less evenly around the CPU top, so that your CPU will get proper cooling, because trust me, you do not want to run a CPU without thermal paste. You're gonna have a bad day if you are. And here is the backplate with the correct bracket. There are several brackets coming along with your AIO. To take it off and switch, just simply twist it and remove. This is the AM4 bracket, so you're gonna have to line it up like this and twist it, and it locks itself into place. Okay, now we're gonna to orient this a bit. Now, before you put on the AIO, you need to remember put these on. Those are parts of the standoff screws that we'll be using to mount our bracket for the AIO. So simply screw them in place like so. Just finger tight, not too tight, but finger tight. There are several screws that comes along, so for this specific cooler and CPU and stuff, it's these guys. Because they have those janger på engelsk that go into these holes of the AM4 backplate, like so. Now, most AIOs come with pre-applied thermal paste, so if yours is brand new, you don't have to remove it, but some manufacturers use bad quality thermal paste on their backplate originally. So I would advise you to buy your own thermal paste that you know is good, remove the old one and apply the new one like I do here. Although, in truth, I've used my old the original thermal paste on this cooler on the previous computer, and the temperatures were fine. They were fine, but you were able to shave off a few degrees with proper thermal paste and avoid thermal throttling. Now here is the standoff screws that go on top. And you want to apply even pressure around here. You don't want to make more pressure on one side than the other, then the thermal paste will be unevenly distributed. So you don't want to tighten it just yet, just screw those in slightly. I am doing this diagonally, as you would do with a car tire if you change one. So this, and this screw. That's the most evenly distributed pressure for the thermal paste. The reason why I do this first, especially before going to the DIMM slots, the RAM, is because as you can see, there's going to be a slight clearing issue. And especially after applying this. I'm gonna put on this afterwards. Just remove those screws. So there we go. This is also a heat pad. This you gotta remove in order for the heat sink to actually work. That's pretty damn simple. Okay, I'm gonna need both hands for this, but just remove the plastic top that says remove. And now you can see this is one slot and not two. So this is where I would want to put my, doesn't really matter though, but this is where I will put my system boot drive. Just put it in here, like so. You can feel it popping into place a little bit. So now you gotta hold it down and screw it in. Now that screw is here. It is this screw right here that will go into that hole and screw it into place. Oh, hands a bit shaky. There we go. Okay, this has got one slot. You're gonna put up pretty damn long NVMe M.2. So yeah, this will go here. There we go. That will need a screw over there. Okay, now this cable right here, which is the RGB addressable cable, connected to this slot down here on this specific motherboard. If you got any doubts on where to put it, see your manual for the AIO and or the motherboard if you're unsure where to plug it in. And the cable for the AIO pump is up here. You can see there are labels up here.
The top one, this one, is the channel optics one, and CPU optics and fan. And then lastly, the one I connected is this AIO pump, so that's the one you want to use. Of course, you're gonna need a SATA cable for that, and these are all 3 splitters for your fans. Oh, by the way, this AIO has its own dedicated CPU fan underneath. I do not know, yeah, you can see it, it's a bit filthy, I'll clean it. So yeah, it's got its own dedicated CPU fan for your DMs or DRAMs and or M.2s, but these ones already got a heatsink right here. Although, will they make too much difference? Yeah, perhaps not. But yeah, I'm gonna put on the plastic cover because it's quite I'm gonna need 2 hands again. It's quite snug, but it's 2 magnets, so it fits and sits rather good. Okay. You see why I was waiting with the RAMs until now? Yeah, this is the reason. Because there's gonna be a slight clearing issue. And there's gonna be some cable management. That needs to be done here. And to be honest, I can probably wait to channel all the cables and stuff later until we get it in a case and then route the cables properly. I just wanted to show you where they go in. And I can show you the rest as well. The SATA cables and that stuff when we get to it. Now we're gonna do the RAM installation. Now I went for the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro 3200 MHz speed, DDR4, 2x16. I've got 4x16, so I got in total 64 gigs of RAM of 3200 speed. Now some motherboards got DIMM slots that's unlockable on both sides. These ones only got the one side, as you can see here, like so. Now I'm using all 4 of these slots, so I'm gonna be popping all those up. You see these guys, they are fixed. They are different from motherboard, so do consult your manual if you are uncertain. And if you're running 2 DIMM sticks instead of 4 RAM sticks, I mean, well, if you take a look, I wonder if I can, yeah, there it is. See, these are the labeling of the channels. This might be different from motherboard to motherboard, but see the one that are marked by stars. So if you're running 2 RAM sticks, you're gonna use channel B2 and A2. So that one and that one. I'll take this guy first. Now you need to pay attention. There's a notch you see here in the middle. It's slight offset from the center, so you need to pay attention to that because, as you guys can see, there are this offset in the middle here that needs to line up with this notch. And as you can see, it does. Now, you want a little bit of force. These are supposed to click into place. You're gonna have to use a little bit of force, but not too much. Not wrestle it. Okay, I'm gonna install the rest of them. Okay, RAM was installed, processor, thermal paste applied, this AIO installed more or less, M.2 installed. Now, what's next is the case. Let's get to it.